according to a 2021 paper by Bert Corsi, published in the Journal of Research of the National Institute of Standards and Technology. The United States government's own measurement laboratory spent decades documenting the young women who painted glowing watch dials. The paper is titled simply, "The National Bureau of Standards and the Radium Dial Painters." Its subject is what happened to their bodies. They were called the Ghost Girls because when they walked home at night, they shimmered. Radium dust settled in their hair, on their dresses, on their skin, until they lit the darkness like something not quite human. But the glow did not stop at the surface. Years later, when their graves were opened, the light was still there, coming from inside their bones. In 1917, the United States Radium Corporation opened a dial painting studio in Orange, New Jersey. Hundreds of young women, some only 14 years old, sat at long tables painting luminous numbers onto watch faces for soldiers heading to the trenches of the First World War. The paint was called undark, radium mixed with zinc sulfide and glue. The work paid better than almost any job a woman could get, and the girls felt lucky to keep the brush tips sharp enough for numbers a millimeter wide. Supervisors taught the women a technique called lip pointing. Brush to the lips, twist, dip in radium paint, repeat hundreds of times a day. Management assured them the paint was harmless, even good for the blood. So the girls played with it. They painted their fingernails, their teeth, their eyelids, then stepped into dark corridors and watched themselves shine. Amelia Maggia, known as Mollie, was one of the first to fall ill. It began with a toothache in 1921. Her dentist pulled the tooth, and the socket refused to heal. Ulcers spread. Her jawbone softened until a doctor lifted the entire bone out with his fingers, without surgery. In September 1922, Mollie died at 24 when the rot reached her throat and she bled out. Her death certificate blamed syphilis. The reason was chemistry. Radium sits directly below calcium on the periodic table, so the body files it away as if it were bone-building mineral. Once locked inside the skeleton, it cannot be flushed out, and it keeps decaying with a half-life of about 1,600 years. Every second, alpha particles drilled outward through living bone. Doctors gave the destruction a name they had never needed before, radium jaw. Others developed anemia, spontaneous fractures, and enormous bone tumors. United States Radium already knew. Its own chemists handled the material with lead screens, tongs, and protective aprons, while the girls put it in their mouths. When independent investigators found alarming results, the company commissioned friendly examinations, declared the women healthy, and buried unfavorable reports. Sick workers were told their problems were dental, nervous, or hysterical. One executive suggested the illnesses were exaggerations from girls who simply wanted money. Then medical examiner Harrison Martland built tests that could measure radioactivity in a living patient's breath and bones, proving the poison came from the paint. In 1927, Mollie Maggia's coffin was opened, 5 years after burial. Investigators laid her remains on photographic film in a sealed dark room. The bones exposed the film by themselves, printing their own portrait in radiation. Her skeleton was still glowing, and it would go on glowing for centuries. Grace Fryer, a former dial painter losing her jaw and spine, spent 2 years finding a lawyer willing to sue. In 1927, she and 4 co-workers filed. Newspapers called them the Radium Girls. In court, some could not raise their arms to take the oath, and doctors testified they had months to live. In 1928, the company settled, $10,000 each, $600 a year for life, and medical costs. Most were dead within 2 years. The dying was not finished. In Ottawa, Illinois, the Radium Dial Company kept lip pointing for years, and Catherine Donohue testified from her own bed in 1938. Weighing about 70 pounds, cradling a piece of her own jawbone as evidence. She won, then died weeks later. Their cases forced America to recognize occupational disease, reshaping compensation law, and eventually workplace safety rules. Decades on, Geiger counters still click over their graves. They were told the glow was harmless. They were told it was even healthy. They were told the pain was in their heads, right up until their bones betrayed the truth on photographic film. Every safety standard that protects a worker today was paid for by women who could not lift their arms to swear an oath. If this story stayed with you, subscribe, because history's strangest phenomena are usually the ones